We talk about the new Lexus NX and also how to get a job in this business next on Talking Cars. Hey there, welcome to Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Tom Muchler.
I'm John Lincove.
And I'm Mike Quincy.
Parked behind us here in the podcast Thunderdome is the new Lexus NX. This is a very, very important car for Lexus. What are your thoughts, John?
So I had a couple days with it. I like it overall. I was surprised at the F Sport trim because the seats were a little narrow for me.
They provided the press car. They provided an F Sport.
Exactly.
Which any enthusiast magazine is going to want the sporty F Sport.
Yeah, I don't think most people are going to like the narrow seats. But aside from that, controls are really nice in the sense that they're at hand. You know, my wife said, particularly, she remarked on how close everything was. I don't think she would like navigating around the little touchpad. That was a little weird.
Yeah, the car gave up Lexus's, the mouse is dead.
Yeah.
Or the mouse was caught.
Little mouse pad, right.
Caught maybe on tar paper somewhere in the back. No, that's horrible. Now there's a touchpad for navigating the screen. Michael, your thoughts?
I was going to wait for you to comment on the touchpad since you are kind of the controls guy. But that being said, the NX isn't bad. It's a nice size.
It's a great
I
size.
loved the steering wheel. I loved the way the car felt. It was relatively quiet inside. I think the F Sport trim, as John mentioned before, maybe you're making some compromises with a slightly stiffer ride. It isn't kind of like what you think of when a Lexus. It didn't bring back memories of the Lexus CT or anything like that.
No,
but,
this is better done than a
but
CT,
it's
or an IS. This is better
exactly.
done than either one of those.
It's a little stiff, but again, the size really appealed to me. The responsive turbocharged engine, that was kind of fun. I always popped it in the performance setting. It's a very appealing car. It has a lot of good things going for it.
I'd say even on the comfort and the eco modes, you know, there's still plenty of performance. Getting the kids in the car seats in were fine. They liked it because they could see out. The front.
They can see out.
They could see out.
I'm surprised by that because the belt line,
I know.
the driver can't see
well,
out.
and that's the thing. The kids in the back, I have one in a booster seat and then one who's in a front-facing convertible, and they both could see out. They both were engaged with what's going on outside and not at each other because they were blinded. So that worked out well. Though my 2-year-old was scared of the front. He did call it the scary car with that predator-looking face.
Like the Jaws.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
The spindle grill's just weird. It's not growing on me.
Well,
it's just,
as John mentioned about his kids, if Lexus or any other car company are worried about attracting a younger audience, my 14-year-old son thought, first he noticed it was the F Sport.
you must give him a lot of allowance.
That immediately, drew his attention. He thought it was cool, but he loved the interior trim. He loved like the red and black seats. He liked the stitching along the dashboard. I mean, that really jumped out to him. If of course you're catering to a 14-year-old.
Well, it's always good to cater at the young at heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's different here. This is a RAV4 based car. It doesn't feel like a RAV4.
Yeah,
it does not have the practicality of a RAV4, nowhere near it. But it's also not a conventional Lexus. This is not a pillowy, floaty, happy Lexus RX.
Yeah, it's a lot of companies talk about design language and where they are in their positioning. I'm not sure exactly where they're positioning it. Are they going more towards BMW fighter? Are they going towards the Buick side? They're leaning
going
more
towards piles of money.
Well, Lexus is
go.
going toward younger. I mean,
They're
got to
trying.
get younger.
Do they have to?
I think so.
Or do people have more money?
Yes, they do, but you're trying to get the next generation customer. You're trying to get a customer for life. So you want to start.
I think you're trying to pull the guy out of Audi, out of BMW, and that's why you're making this.
That's a fair point. Those looking at a Q5 might say, see what Lexus has.
Yeah, it's a tweener kind of car too. Maybe it's not. It's. I don't know if it's necessarily as roomy as a Q5 in the feel. Dimensionally, they may be on paper dimensionally, but
it doesn't feel.
The Q's a little roomier, but it's a little more like the Volvo XC60 in the field, getting in and out and stuff like that for me. It'll be interesting to see a normal version. It'll be interesting, non-sporty.
The
visibility to the back,
which will obviously
really
be their biggest seller. They're not going to sell tons of F Sports, and their traditional Lexus older buyer won't go for the F Sport.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that there's no higher performance engine model available. Instead, there will be a hybrid.
Yep.
And I think they're doing something that the RAV4 should have done a long time ago. In providing, this is going to be, I believe, the first all-wheel drive Toyota 4-cylinder hybrid that we get here. Maybe that indicates that there'll be a RAV4 hybrid, although there's a lot of body pan differences here. But still, that car would be a no-brainer.
Right.
Cost. Is it easier
how
to?
many times have we been asked, where is the hybrid SUVs
Yeah.
after the Ford Escape went away?
Yeah.
Why aren't they making hybrid SUVs?
Yeah. I think a hybrid RAV4 would, even if it was, let's say a RAV4 now is 28, even if it was 30 or 31. I bet you
It's easier to pass that off in a Lexus product.
it's easier to hide the cost.
Exactly,
in a
the hybrid.
Lexus
So,
product.
which in a Highlander, which it has a higher price point and such than a smaller than a RAV, which is why you don't see a CRV. I have a friend who keeps telling me a fit hybrid would be great, and I'm sure it would be great, but it would be a $30,000 fit, like the electric and such. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's a growing segment, and Lexus was sorely needed something that wasn't RX.
Oh, definitely.
But Tom, you mentioned the mouse is dead. I was really interested to hear what you thought of the new control layout.
Oh, it's a mess. Everything's close at hand, but it's not all equally at hand. Like the climate controls are bulging out at me.
Okay.
The radio controls are underneath this overhanging ledge.
Yeah.
The mouse controller's down here. It tries. It gives you feedback through
Right.
it as you move through the different screens.
I want to say, I think that
I don't think iDrive is worse. I don't think iDrive is worse. I don't think MMI is worse
Right.
anymore. They're getting into the
Stop the
well,
presses.
no. Here's what's happening. The Germans aren't. Don't ever think the Germans are stupid.
Never.
They are making things simpler. They're making the screen layout simpler. I think that's where the controller itself is fine.
But they're not admitting that they were wrong initially.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No. Again, they are. Again, they would like to sell money. They would like to have customers more satisfied. Having them confused by cars doesn't help.
I think the software in this was a little off too, being a pre-production car, because it did some jumpings. It would cut out on songs on my iPod,
It's funny.
stuff like that.
The car has a hang tag on the sun visor. Hey, this is a pre-production vehicle.
way.
Know that it's not quite done. So whatever you like, that's production.
That's production.
Whatever
Yeah.
you don't like, pre-production,
Yeah.
we'll fix it. We'll solve it. It definitely won't be like that.
Yeah, and I loved all the options, the variations of how you can take the display in between, near the speedometer and the tachometer. What was that kind of squiggly?
The spider graph.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
It's a lateral G.
Lateral Gs.
force.
You can see the dot move when you accelerate, and then when you hit the brakes hard.
In an SUV.
F Sport.
F-Sport.
F-Sport.
Yeah.
F-Sport. Big.
Okay.
Anyway, this is a category Lexus should have. We're not in the business at Consumer Reports of telling car companies how to make money. But a plusher, a higher level RAV4 is a no-brainer.
Yep.
We expect this will be a big seller for Lexus.
Certainly.
We'll see how it does when we buy a non-F Sport version to test down the road. We continue to get comments on the YouTubes about someone's GTI show and certain things I said. From Ed Fan, oh God, please go back to review your refrigerator and microwaves. That sounds like an MTV song. This is truly sad for CR. Kyle Wesley, since when does anyone who actually knows anything about cars care about Consumer Reports opinions? That Toyota Camry sure is a wonderful car. Here's the irony. Quincy's getting for saying something isn't sporty enough. If we loved toasters, if we loved blenders so much, yeah, it's great. It's got red stitching. Sporty.
And no one would care. I still feel strongly about that GTI. I don't take back any of the things that I said. It didn't wow me, and I wanted it to wow me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take that as you want.
Look, the new GTI isn't as good as the last one. Sometimes car manufacturers build a vehicle that's so great and so good and it does everything well, it's really hard to summit that. Let's also remember, this is the same company, Volkswagen, that brought us the American Passat, which is a big yawner in fanboy world.
The
In
extraordinarily,
fanboy world,
the very American Jetta.
and the very American Jetta. In fanboy world, they're all angry about it. They want the German car. They want this. So you know what? Volkswagen does make errors.
I'm still angry they don't have a Westphalia camper here.
That's true. With a manual and
a diesel?
Yeah, diesel, right?
Please.
All-wheel drive.
If
They'd have my money.
VW could make a stylish, cool minivan, I think they'd sell a ton
Oh,
of
you mean the
them.
Rutan wasn't
A
stylish?
ton of
But-
them.
Cool.
But a couple of years ago, Tom, you said VW is on this quest to be a big seller.
Everyone said that. VW. and
Even VW, they want
And so they give up. You give up some of your edge.
I think
if
in many
that's what you're
ways,
doing.
it's a better car. It might not be a more fun car. It might not be a more exciting car. It's different.
It may score like a Toyota Camry, do really well overall,
But do you want
but not be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
And it may very well be. And you know what? When a fanboy says something in the woods, does anybody?
No.
You know, and actually someone on YouTube made a good comment. Anything we said about the GTI, we should make the same comment about the the BMW 3 Series. And we do.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah. We think the new 3 Series has lost steering feel.
Yep.
It is still an all-around fantastic car. And the GTI
No question.
pretty much falls in that category. You know, that's the thing about this job, is that we have an opinion about a car. Everyone out there thinks they're an expert. Everyone out there who even hasn't driven the car wants to go at it. It's one of the downsides of this business. But there's a lot of upsides of this business. And we got a question about that. I have a question for Mike Quincy. That's you. Underneath your name, when you're introduced, it says auto specialist. How does someone become an auto specialist? Is there a degree for it? I'm just wondering because I really want to work in the auto industry.
I went to the University of Auto Specialists. No.
It's a really nice school. They have ivory growing up the sides of a 3 Series. It's real nice.
I'm sure that you guys get this question a lot because we do have cool jobs. We write about cars, we drive cars, and I'm asked a lot, how do you get into this? Well, usually my answer is either, well, you're going to approach it from like an automotive, from a journalist standpoint, studying like English and writing and whatnot, or you might be pursuing it from an engineering standpoint.
Yes, you guys are the writer guys. I'd be engineer guy.
Right. So I think if you're interested in becoming an automotive journalist, you got to take a lot of classes in college on writing. You've got to be willing to start at the bottom. Start at your local newspaper. You might even start at a blog, and they're not going to pay you anything, but at least you get yourself in the habit of writing, meeting deadlines, and you start developing a book of clips so you can show people. And you just have to knock on a lot of doors. You have to be ready for a lot of rejection. But I truly think that if you can believe it, you can become it. You have to really have that thing, as my uncle used to say, that thing that keeps you up at night. Don't be afraid to pursue
Heartburn.
it. Well, that too, but I mean, he made his life as a musician in New York City for about 40 years and managed to make his rent. So he believes in a long shot. I believe in a long shot, and I think if there's something like this that seems like, oh my gosh, it has the turnover rate of the Supreme Court, which is what a former car and driver editor once told me about trying to break into the business.
Yeah.
But these days, I think it's getting a little bit easier just because there's more outlets.
It's a much more dynamic business.
Right.
John, your thoughts?
Major in journalism, minor in business, so that you have something to fall back on. It's a very hard thing to get into. I have a broadcast journalism degree. I worked for a marketing company doing work. I freelanced on the side. I fell into this job by luck. You know, it's a tough business, and there's a lot of people in the industry who are longtime people who are scrapping for work right now. So have your heart set on it, but always have a backup plan.
Yeah, you know, this is what happened. On the one hand, it's become easier to get in the business because there's so many blogs.
So much digital.
There's so much digital. On the other hand, it's become harder to get into the business because anyone can get into it now. You know, the media world is shrinking, or it's both expanding and it's shrinking. The old school media world is, you know, Road and Track laid off most of their staff. No, Automobile.
Yeah,
well, Road and Track did
Road
too.
and Track has. Yeah. It's one of those things, like, I think you and I have talked about this. You know, thank you, Lucky Stars, in the sense, like, it's great that we have it. I thank my Lucky Stars that I have it. It has bureaucratic annoyances that get you down.
Any job does.
Any job does.
But
this has a lot of perks that if I'm really annoyed, I can drive a 911 around the racetrack. You know, and shred tires.
Or I can take home a Camry.
You can take home a Camry. That's right.
Take home a GTI. Oh,
yeah. But yeah, you know, that's the thing. Journalism, project management, you know, comprehensive knowledge of the industry and be able to retain those facts and a backup plan.
Well, I think it's also crank the stuff out. Get out there, get published. I mean, that's one of the great things about Jalopnik's recent redesign is it's letting a lot more people get into this. And the more you write, the more you're out there, just the better chance you have. You know, give it a shot. We certainly wish you the best. One more question. Do you guys ever talk about the Nissan Altima? Is it a good car to buy?
It's had its reliability issues with
the first year, the 13 was not good.
In fact, I'm working on a project now, and there's a lot of recalls and a lot of service campaigns and a lot of updates for those first models. However, I have friends that I put into one and they love it, the 4-cylinder. They like the seats. You know, whether it's the zero gravity or whatever, they like the seats.
I still don't know what that means.
They put two kids in the back seat. They like it. Very roomy. They take it on trips out from here to Long Island, and that's some summer traffic to deal with, so they're very comfortable with that. You know, it's a solid fuel efficient sedan, and it probably has a little more excitement than that darn Toyota Camry.
But what I noticed is when you asked that question, there was this pause, there was this hesitation. It's like, but my take, the fuel economy in the 4-cylinder is really incredible.
Yes, it is.
The V6 model that we tested was luxurious, it was powerful, I liked driving it. Has Nissan figured out the reliability issues? I'm not so sure, but I really find especially the V6 or the higher end trims on the Altima to be very appealing family sedans.
Yeah, I mean, the hesitation I have is that recent Nissan products, the Altima, the Pathfinder, to some extent the Sentra, they've been really cost cut. They just feel thinner. They just don't have the substance, even that earlier Nissans have, and certainly not the substance that many other competitors in this segment have, especially when you start to get to the Fusion or the Malibu, which are very solid feeling cars.
Let alone an Accord.
Yeah, and an Accord manages to be lightweight yet feel more substantial than an Altima. That's my biggest hesitation.
So what do you think Nissan's angle is with the Altima? Is it sporty? Is it luxurious? Is it cheap? Is it fuel economy? What do you think they push when they
No,
sell
I
that?
think it's fuel economy, it's size, it's a lot of value for the money. There's a reason it's so common in rental fleets. It is a good all-around sedan that is totally unexciting.
Yeah, it's unremarkable.
And you know, unless you buy a loaded V6, and even then, it just, you know, it's a nice
expensive.
car. Yeah, and then it gets expensive. So I hope that answered that question for you. As always, we appreciate hearing from our readers. Feel free to send us your questions. Hopefully, we'll get to them. Until then, we'll see you next time.